Hello everyone and welcome to another Windows 98 project. About a year ago I presented my Windows 98 machine, which is powered by 1.4 GHz Pentium 3 and GeForce 4 Ti 4200 HEP4X. Not long after that I made a video of a Pentium 4 powered Windows 98 machine that I built for a friend of mine. Despite of a weak GeForce FX graphics card, it runs games from 2001 and 2002 at higher settings, and my friend has told me that the computer has been in active use and is very stable. This of course made me happy, but also oddly jealous of my own creation, so I decided I should build technically very similar Windows 98 machine for myself too. Period correct builds are always fun, but with 1.4 GHz Dualatin and GeForce 4 it isn't exactly period correct for Windows 98 anymore, and it already runs speed sensitive games too fast anyway, so I might as well go for a configuration with all the power reserves I need for this kind of use. I'm splitting this project into a video series, so let's proceed with the topic of this first video, which is the case. I was looking for an ATX case with a characteristic look for this time period, and I found this old Meisaku business case. It's from around year 2000 and it has the aesthetics that I was looking for. Judging by the stickers, it used to have an Asus motherboard that supported both AMD Athlon and Intel Pentium 3 processors. But yeah, this case has some unusual features, with all the panels being plastic, this arguably handy handle on top of the case, this unusual rear cover, and also this Windows logo shaped front ventilation, which I love. Since this is going to be an overkill build, I got no choice but to overkill the ventilation too. This moderate 140mm Noctua will replace the original way smaller intake fan, just to make sure that the system will get a sufficient amount of fresh air. For the back exhaust, I'm using these two 60mm Noctuas, which will fit in the original mounts, although I'm removing the meshes to improve airflow. Since these old cases are not designed with optimized airflow in mind, I also had to modify the front and back panels too. The only problem with this case is that it has some rust. Nothing too bad, but obviously it needs to be taken care of. In order to get a neat and durable paint job, the groundwork must be done carefully and thoroughly. Patience is the key word here. I sanded the plastic parts all over with grits from P240 to P800. Then I washed them with soap and warm water and let them dry overnight before I started painting. Don't forget that spray paints are toxic and a good respirator is essential. Just a COVID mask is not enough for this. First, a couple of layers of plastic primer are sprayed on the plastic surface. It acts as a binder between the plastic and the paint. Without it, the paint surface will start to chip very easily and flake off. And remember, thin layers. I sprayed grey primer on top of the plastic primer. If everything is to be painted the same color, it is important to spray the same color primer under the main color to avoid shade differences. The primer is also slightly thicker than other paints, so it effectively covers small mistakes and scratches on the plastic surface. I sprayed 3 thin layers, and after they dried a little, I grind the surface with P800 grit and clean it carefully. Then it's time for the main color. In previous projects I've used bright white, and while it looks cool, I felt like I should go more for the 90s off-white shade, as I did with the previous Pentium 4 build. Again, 3 thin layers did the trick. If you're a beginner at this, drawing the surface with 1 thick layer might be tempting, but trust me, you'll regret it. For clear coat, I chose matte finish. When choosing a clear coat spray, avoid the cheapest option, as the lower quality clear coats tend to have a yellowish hue to them. I grinded the metal parts carefully with several different sanders, and of course for the rusty parts I had to give some extra attention. After the grinding was done, I painted them with an edge primer, which is specifically meant for metal surfaces. From there on, the painting process goes just as it did with the plastic parts. Many people think that screeching fans and crackling hard drives definitely belongs to retro builds, but to me that's not very appealing. I want to make the machine as quiet as possible, so I'm soundproofing all the plastic panels with two different kind of damping mats. The first layer is to minimize vibrations. The second layer is for noise absorbing, in other words, removing echoing. The paint job needs to be finalized by fine sanding and waxing, which gives it a more professional look. Even though being touch dry the next day, the paint job actually keeps drying for the next week or so. After letting it settle for a couple of weeks, I grinded the surface very gently with P14s sandpaper. Be very careful when doing this so you won't accidentally grind through the clear coat layer. Then I cleaned the surface and scrubbed it with a finishing wax that's meant for matte surfaces. Alright, so this frame turned out quite funky and also a pretty good start. As you can see, I painted some parts in the same off-white color as the plastic covers and some parts in a very basic silver shade. For the base plate, instead of painting, I gave a light metal polish just to see how it might have looked like, and in hindsight that actually would have been quite nice. Oh well. I'm not denying that I may have gone slightly overboard with this intake fan, but at least there's not going to be a shortage of fresh air inside the case. Besides, I think it looks pretty damn awesome. I also carefully rounded every single sharp edge, because cuts are not allowed in this case. Right, so that was the first part of this project. In the next part, we'll go through the components and assembling. See you guys soon.